Hello. We had an issue during the presentation on Waterville's railroad station that resulted in losing the first quarter of the recording. This required the audio to be recorded the week after and overdubbed. I am only going to redo the portion that was lost and retain the original audio where it still exists. My goal is to mimic the original as best as possible, so I did not script this. My name is Peter Violette. I am a Waterville native and am now a rail engineer in the Boston area. I have an interest in railroads, architecture, and Waterville history. For the last 5 years, I have been researching the history of the railroad station for my 3D models. I've been trying to find the earliest picture of a railroad station in Waterville, and this one is the only one I really have seen to find. This one had been labeled in different books and publications as being on the corner of Temple and Front Street, but actually, this is the station that was off on the corner of Pleasant and Main Street. So the locomotive on the right had just crossed Main Street, and the two guys on the left are right at the intersection of Pleasant and Main Street. Recently, it was the building that's there now was like a health food place for a little while. And before that, I believe it was a butcher shop. So again, here is a shot of the same building. The photographer is standing on the hill behind the Public Works, with Main Street going from left to right in the distance, and Pleasant Street being obscured by the building. Now, Waterville was a hub for railroads in the early days. So on the blue is the Somerset and Kennebec, in the green is the Androscoggin and Kennebec, and the red is the Penobscot and Kennebec. And they went from the blue one came from Augusta, the green one came from Portland via um, Lewis and Auburn, and the red one going up to Bangor. Now here's is the earliest map I could find of Waterville from 1853. And you can see the original connection, the original line, from Augusta was much farther from Front Street than it currently is. You can see that it was so far that houses were actually built on Front Street where the railroad is in their backyard. And the original railroad shops that were built as the Androscoggin and Kennebec railroad shops were in Railroad Square, and you can see the station there, the depot, on the top left. Now, the original alignment of the Somerset and Kennebec was much closer to the river all the way down, not just in front of Head of Falls. And when they were consolidating in Maine Central, and they were planning on doing it, they wanted to find a place where the lines would meet, and they started thinking about Fairfield, but they ultimately decided on Waterville. So the best way to do that was to swing up across College Avenue and then cut the line back to the mill on Head of Falls. And this was quite a feat because from the bridge in the bottom left up to the station on the intersection of Chapel and College Ave was about 30 feet raise, which is close to being the angle that they had to do the track was close to being the maximum for trains at the time. And so these were the two architects for the station. There's Gridley Bryan on the left and Lewis Rogers on the right. And they had just completed, or excuse me, Gridley Bryant had been working with a bunch of different architects in the past, and he had done Boston City Hall, and I believe it was with Lewis Rogers, he did Gloucester City Hall. Both of these buildings still exist and are beautiful. So I don't know if it was a bid process or if the railroads hired them directly, but they drew up plans for the station. Now, here is a timeline for the station that started in late fall of 71 and went through just into January of 73. All of these dates came from the predecessor to the Morning Sentinel, the Waterville Mail, as well as the Bangor Daily. They did a really good job documenting each portion of the building with reports, which were super helpful. And here it is finished. This is a really early picture taken. This honestly could have been taken in 1873. I don't see leaves on the tree in this one, so this one could be in the spring. And here's another shot here, but these aren't exceptionally clear, so I decided to make a model of it. Now, I'm going to go through each room left from right here. So I'm going to start with the restaurant. And if you saw in the previous slide, the previous picture and the 3D model there was a sign that was on the ground outside that said J.F. Murray. And uh, he managed a bunch of different restaurants in the Maine Central System. He did Bangor, Mount Desert Ferry down in Hancock, Waterville, and I believe he did Lewiston and Portland as well. And he eventually cut back to just Waterville, and then got bought out by the Armstrong Restaurant Company, which was a New England chain that managed all of the restaurants in the major stations in New England. And he went on to have managed two restaurants in Waterville on Main Street, and was described as being the finest dressed man in Waterville. So this was he was around when this was the design there. And I don't have a picture of really any interior shot of the station this early. This one is from White River Junction in Vermont, and kind of gives you an idea. I believe this restaurant did both table service and a lunch counter. I'm guessing that that is a lunch counter, a curved lunch counter in the drawing, but it doesn't really describe what it is. So this gives you a good idea what it would have been like. And then the baggage master's office, the baggage room, and the kitchen. And this is a picture of the station in Kentucky, New Hampshire, which is a village in Hopkinton. It was built around the same time as this station and had been restored recently. So it kind of gives you an idea with the wood on the walls and the scale, what might have been in the baggage master's office or maybe in the baggage room. Then the rotunda would have just been the general reading room. Again, here's the same station. So you would have had benches. I'm sure that there was a fireplace that you could see there on the left. Wooden walls. This color scheme might have been accurate. I'm really in shooting in the dark here. And then in the ticket office, there would be a window that went into the waiting room. This station here is at Potter's Place in Andover, New Hampshire. So that would have had similar cabinets and drawers. May or may not have been painted wood, but it would have looked something like this. And then the ladies' waiting room, which was supposed to be more of a sophisticated room. Unfortunately, they were using this room as storage. This looks, I guess, this is a little bit more sophisticated. Had flowers in it, maybe. Guess is as good as mine on that one. So this is what the area looked like back in 1888. Chaplin Street would have continued all the way to College Ave. This is a composite image from two different maps that I edited together, which is why it looks kind of funky around where Chaplin Street should have been. But it would have connected all the way to the street, and kind of gives you an idea of the layout that was in Railroad Square in the station. One of the biggest events at the station in the early years was Teddy Roosevelt visiting Waterville. It happened on August 27th, 1902. And in the newspaper, Teddy was reported as not a particularly good speaker. He speaks rather slowly and hesitantly, and his voice has little music in it. He was applauded in a very moderate and calm manner, taking great care to avoid the appearance of being overenthusiastic. So apparently, the newspaper was, or what did actually report that It was good that Waterville wasn't that super enthusiastic, so they wouldn't look too over uh, zealous to see Teddy. I'm not sure why they said that, but it was actually reported in the paper. Here's another shot. I mean, look at the people on the telegraph pole. Wow, yeah, it was quite a crowd, and they brought in some palm trees, which is pretty neat. There he is on the right at the podium, and then here, with the people on the roof, on the awning. And here's the station around 1901, and you can see the baggage and express building there on the right. They decided that they wanted to incorporate that into the station, so they commissioned to have, I'm not sure who designed it, they could have been designed in house. An addition put on the left side of the station here. The construction started in March of 1906. The walls were finished in May, as well as the interior and painted, and construction finished in either late July or early August. And here's the finished shot of the building. You can see they extended the awning all the way around, and that there are portions of it that are actually in this black and white picture are lighter than other portions. This doesn't give you a good idea on the color, so I made another model. Now, again, I'm going to go through room by room. It's flipped the opposite way as the previous drawing. So the first room here is a waiting room, and it was drastically increased. It was just in the rotunda there on the left, and they expanded it all the way up into the curved portion, and they put the ticket office there at the top. There's now a smoking room, telephone booths, much larger building, much larger room. Whoops, excuse me. So let's head back here. Here's the restaurant. I wish I had pictures of it. It's really too bad. All I have is this description of the floors. Men's and women's bathrooms. No more ladies' waiting room. We got the serving room. The restaurant, the kitchen was upstairs, so they would plate and add, I'm guessing, any sort of drink or whatever that you wanted was in the serving room. Then there's a passageway between the two sections of the building there, and the baggage room, and then the express room. So when this was built, it was the American Express Company, which is the same one as the credit card, and it was basically FedEx of its day. It was separate from the post office, and you would bring your package down there, and they would send it, and they had their own cars usually with the train, and you would, I believe they delivered to your house, or maybe that was in later days, or you would come down to the station and get it. Now here's the second floor. I wish they had more description, but this drawing was built in excuse me. This drawing was drawn in 1916, so maybe these rooms weren't actually used anymore. It was just storage. I really wish I knew what was up there. Storage. There on the right is the kitchen with the dumbwaiter. This unfinished room might have had a pretty short ceiling because it was right over that archway. What's interesting is there's no door that connects the kitchen to the unfinished room and then into the office space. And then the office space here. And this is a point where the original recording picks up, so I'm signing off on this voiceover and back to the original recording. Then in 22, they wanted to expand the Railway Express office for this. They wanted more of a place for people to come because this was more. It's a lot to go back. It was more of a. Sorry, come on. So the Railway Express is on the left, and it didn't really have a customer-facing place. It was
it wasn't pretty to go in. It would have just had a bunch of shelves, and on the left side it was above the track. I think it's 38 inches. It said somewhere 38 inches above platform. So it wasn't the best place for customers to come. So what they did was they put on the additional office here. So this is looking in from the back, looking up. It's pretty small. It was a wood building. This is the layout of it. I had to take this picture with my phone. I didn't have this document scanned in time. So you'd walk in, and there would be a counter to the right where you would pay, and then you would get your package in front of you. And they had a bathroom. They closed up the old doors. And by 1930, the awning was starting to deteriorate. And I had some correspondence that they were sending them down to Portland. They were writing down to the offices in Portland saying that they need to replace it. So this was in 1930, remember. So it wasn't until 1932 that they decided that it was too far gone and they didn't want to rebuild them. So they started to take them down. And they used torches, and as you can see, it's held together with bolts on the bottom and the top. This is a cut section through the wall. And so they started torching them, and they found that this plan didn't represent how it was on the entire length of the station, and they were held up in timbers in some spots, so those caught on fire. But the damage was restricted to just the sheathing on the walls and the floor, and it only cost $104 to repair in 1932. Which adjusted for inflation was $2,500, but they still went through their insurance company. They filed a claim. They had John Page Insurance in Boston on Broad Street. I don't know why they didn't just fix it and put it and raise the rate. I'm not sure. So the first diesel locomotive was the Flying Yankee train set, which is number 6000, came up in 1935. This was in February. Couldn't find this negative. This picture was given to me. I wish I had a nice clear picture, but I don't. But what's interesting is this train set is still around, and it was just moved to Conway Scenic Railroad in New Hampshire, and it's going to be completely restored. So this picture was taken like 2 weeks ago when they were moving it there. It's really pretty. So now we get up into the war years. I was really hoping to get more pictures of GIs leaving to go, because a lot of the time this was, or I shouldn't say a lot of time, I don't know how many, was the last time that people saw their brother or their son before they went to war. And so those flyers that are in the back, those are the pictures I'm asking for, as a little bit more personality than, it gives the station a little bit more personality than just seeing a picture of it from the street level, from College Ave. So this is one of the few shots that I found. This is from the Sentinel. This is April of '41, so actually before the war even started, people going off. So now, getting into the time where the Morning Sentinel saved their negatives. So prior to 48, middle of 48, they organized their negatives by subject and not by date. So I don't remember off the top of my head where this picture came. But this is Mayor Dundas on the left shaking William McDonald's hand with his mother Annie and his sister Ruth. And just by chance, I found the newspaper article for this. This was in, I think this was 42. This is another one, people going to war. I think I dated this one to 44 based off the magazines in the back. And this is one of the very few pictures inside the station. And the shot is taken inside the restaurant newsstand. And this is actually the only picture I've seen inside there. I do have I was able to date it, and I don't have them written down here, but I do have them. I should have written it down here, but I don't. But they were going to war. But it wasn't all bad in the 40s. These are, I believe, this is the basketball team. And so I didn't know that. I just assumed because the second from the right is holding a pair of shoes, and it's obviously winter. So yeah. I would have thought, well, I guess it would be the appropriate size for the 44 team. Okay. So for the recording, that's Wally Donovan on the left. There is the coach. Anyone recognize any other guys?
Teddy Shiro, Swisher Mitchell.
Swisher's third from the left.
All right, so
Teddy's next to him. Man and White Soul. Bob Martin.
Lenny Salter.
well for the recording kit, what were some of the names? And I want to make sure it gets on the recording. I'll say what were some of the names?
On the left, you've got the coach.
Yep.
Wally Donovan.
Wally Donovan, coach.
Next to him. I don't recognize
And Swisher Mitchell after him.
Swisher Mitchell is the second one from the left.
Ted Shiro.
Teddy Shiro next to him.
I don't think that's Lenny Salter, the white. The next to the white,
Peggy Canada was on there.
looks like Bob Martin.
Bob Martin, which one?
On the right of Teddy Shiro.
With his arm around him.
Yes.
Yep.
The man with the white coat has his arm around.
Okay.
Teddy on the left and Bob Martin on the right.
Yep.
It is.
Georgie Jobber on the far right.
I think it's John Jobber on the far right.
It's John, yeah.
John Jobber on the far right. What about the guys that kneeling down? Any idea?
No,
Don't recognize them?
we should know them.
Well-
If you look at there's another team picture when they came in.
Yep.
And there's a picture at the boys club
Yep.
of the team. Their names, they're listed in the boys club picture.
All right.
That's not the whole team.
Well, now that I know that it was the 44 team, I can probably find the article for this, and it will name them. But because this was pre-48, I had no idea what date. I had no idea. So in 47, post-war. In 47, post-war, they Maine Central, their passenger service peaked during the war, and it was just downhill after that. So they wanted to keep that going, so they invested a lot. So they remodeled Portland. Union Station got a full interior remodel. They bought a bunch of stainless steel air-conditioned cars, and they remodeled Waterville. And I, off the top of my head, I don't remember the contractor that did the waiting room, but I know my grandfather's company, Violette, did the restaurant, which unfortunately I don't have any pictures of. But this is looking north, toward the curve section, with the ticket booth there, and then turned around is the southern section where the double doors in the middle would have gone into the restaurant and the men and women's room on the right and left side. Those lockers there, I think, were, you remember, Dave, off the top of your head, a nickel?
People used to put luggage in there
Yeah.
overnight or whatever.
Yeah, but I believe you had to put in a coin, or
Put money, whatever.
you put in your luggage.
Pay toilets too.
Yep. Pay toilets. You'd have to put your coin in, and then the door would unlock, and you'd go in. Yep. In the article, they were, I mean, now it kind of looks like Pepto-Bismol and I don't know, green gum. But that was in the article in December of 47. They talked about how fine it looked with the marble floor and the pink and the green. So this is basically what the station looked like after the remodel and towards the end. In the middle there, the light blue and yellow, that sign says restaurant, and the Armstrong Company. And you can see on the left, I started doing the interior. You can see the curve there real quick. And in the middle there, on those windows at the bottom, it said like Hood's Ice Cream, Snack Bar. So they were advertising to come into the restaurant. So now, another basketball team. So this is March 20th, 1949, when the Panthers came back from Boston. They won states, and they went down to go play Somerville, Massachusetts at the Garden. And unfortunately, they lost 42-37. But this was the crowd that they came back to. So this was March 20th, and the Sentinel reported that it was 2,000 people that came. Excuse me, to greet the team again. Was it the same coach?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's some of the players.
Older brothers of that 44 team.
Yeah, so it was a lot of older brothers on that 44 team for the recording. And this was right around when Colby was going to the Hill. So this picture here came from Colby Special Collections. This is late 40s, early 50s. Excuse me, this is the late 40s, and I know that because of the next slide. And because Colby was leaving, they started to sell off the plots that were right on College Avenue. So the first one went to one gas station. It was a Sunoco station that was on the corner of Front Street and College Ave, and this is the first construction here right across the street. And just to show the various developments that went on, you can see those buildings that are right on College Ave. Those are all brand new buildings. And it just goes to show the change that was happening around this time. So a Sunoco station was built, then a city services station was built, then a Texaco station was built, then a Gulf station. An Esso was actually there in the 30s, but that was technically the first one. And Jenny gas station. So there was what? 2, 4, 6 gas stations within walking distance of the railroad station. So the next event that would have happened was 470's last run in 54. I love this picture. This was June 13th, 54, and the photographer is on top of, I think it was the WGAN. They had a mobile recording studio. They were the radio station at the time, and I believe the photographer is standing on that, because the signals would have been across the tracks, which I originally thought this was standing on the signals. You could see the high school band on the right are standing on the plinth that 470 would eventually be placed on, and they were reported playing I've Been Working on the Railroad. I don't know if they just played it on loop for the entire time the locomotive was coming in. So this negative, this is a Morning Sentinel negative, and so when I was going through the collection, you have all of the images from June 12th, all of the images from June 14th, all of them from June 13th except 470. So I don't have any. They would have taken probably a dozen pictures of that day, and I don't have any of them. That envelope was taken out, and I don't know where it is. Somebody had them because somebody scanned them, but they weren't put back into the collection, which is a huge bummer. So 470 was placed on a plinth in front of the station, and the station had double tracks on it on the College Avenue side. So one for the trains that were going to stop at the station, and then there was one that passed that, so you wouldn't have to be right on the station. Or you could go around trains, probably not go around trains that were parked there because of the block signaling, but you could bypass it. Well, anyway, so they cut into the track that bypassed the platform, and they put these timbers down, and they jacked up, and you can see, it might be hard to see in the middle, but you can see it's 3 or 4 ties high, and that's how they brought 470 in. So this was a couple days later. The day 470 brought in was pretty rainy, and it was cold. But this was a beautiful day. Too bad it wasn't this day that the last run was. They brought 470 in, and they removed the track, and there it sat. It was a really nice display when it was first put there. It was in really good shape. Love this shot. This is late 50s. You could see on the right side of the station towards ground level that the paint's starting to flake. And that's just because less maintenance. And in 57, in January of 57, the temperature was recorded as 32 below zero. But unofficially, it was 40 below zero. And there was an issue that day with the station's furnace. It was reported that the motor of the oil heating plant went out. So they remembered that they had another steam locomotive on the roster. They had 519, which was sitting in the yard. When they retired the steam locomotives, they put 470 in front of the station. Then they had 2 freight locomotives. They had 501, which was in Portland, and 519 in Waterville, and they were for emergency use. So if any of the diesel locomotives broke down, they still had the expertise to fire a steam locomotive, so they kept them. But 519 had been, I think it retired in 50, so 7 years it was sitting active, and they tested it. They filled the boiler with water and put that under pressure. They found it didn't leak, so it was still able to hold steam, so they steamed it up. And they backed it to the station, and they hooked, you can't see it in this picture, but they hooked up steam lines to it, and they fed that into the basement, and they tied it into the heating plant, and they heated the station for the 30 degree below temperature. And it was also the spot for the buses. So throughout the station's life, a lot of the rural lines lost their passenger service pretty early. Some in the 30s even, and they ran buses like up to Bingham. That was a pretty early bus conversion. So on the right side, that was after they sold their bus lines to Greyhound. Prior, it was Maine Central bus lines. Love this shot too. I like any color shots of the station. I love. And it was very popular. This was the last season. This is it's either 59. It might not be the last season. It's either 59 or 60. So the last season or second last season. These are luggage of all the campers that were coming up from southern New England. So they'd stack them high, and it was that was it for the station. It was 60 Labor Day weekend in 1960 was the last passenger ride, but the station was still being used because Maine Central and the Boston and Maine had merchandise trains, which was they would do less than carload LTC trains, and it was not baggage. It would mostly be Railway Express. So when you zoom in on some of these boxes, it's Levine's and Hathaway that were going out. So they were still doing freight stuff, but they weren't doing passenger. So this picture was taken in the afternoon based off the sun, and this was the last passenger train that left the station that evening. And then locked the door to the waiting room, and then that was it for the waiting room. You can see on the left the brick paint's not in great shape. So it sat there for a few years. In 1960, in December, the post office leased the waiting room, and they filled it with packages. And that was the last use of the waiting room, was stored for Christmas packages. And so here's a shot taken on the other side of College Ave, looking towards the station with the merchandise train. Those are all baggage trains. And you can see the issue here is we've got a crossing right there, and then it crosses back over the track, the road on the other side. So there was an early proposal to get rid of those grade crossings, and unfortunately, couldn't find the full resolution of this, so I can't zoom in. But this proposal has the track swing down over Pleasant Street, go down behind the Boys Club. There's like that road there, the access to Dunkin' Donuts and Burger King from Main Street. This proposal had the tracks going down there. You have one crossing over College Ave into the Colby campus, have a new station built at Colby, and then swing back up and go back into the yard. But they didn't like this one. So this was a state-owned road. So the state hired the firm Edwards and Kelsey to figure out how to eliminate this grade crossing. This is dated 58, so it was pretty early on before they started doing it that they wanted to get rid of it. So here's an aerial from 59, and the rail alignment is in red, showing the issue. Two major grade crossings on College Ave, and there were dozens and dozens of accidents. I don't know why people couldn't see the train coming at night, but it happened a lot. And the Colby buildings that I dashed out in red, those are either abandoned or just used for warehouses, and even in the case of one building, burned down. So these weren't in use.
Is that baseball field from Colby?
Yeah, that's the what's called Severns.
Severance.
Yeah, this was Severns Field. It's technically New Severns Field is the current one. They called this Severns Field. Little League played on it too. I can have a whole nother presentation on the Colby campus. It was so interesting. So, oh yeah, the field house. So that was built. That was a pretty new building compared to like Memorial Hall, which was in the 1860s, 1866, I believe. So the field house, they held the Maine State Basketball. What's the actual name, Dad? The Maine State Basketball Championship. Yeah, and they had, I believe it was reported either 4,000 or 6,000 people in that field house, and it had a glass roof, which is pretty progressive, modern. I believe this building was around 1912 when it was built, and they had sportsman shows. It was a busy place. Yep, the Harlem Globetrotters came. Yeah, it was quite a building, and it was purchased by the city, and as well as the little, there's like a little building to the top right of it. That was the original Colby Gym, which had the field house added onto it later. That was an the armory was there before the armory on is it Drummond Avenue? Before that one was built. That one was built after this one was torn down. Yeah, like I said, I could have a whole other thing on the Colby campus. It was very interesting. So this one is the current alignment. So as you see, it blew through the Colby campus, and it blew through the north is to the right of the picture, the northern portion of the station. So in October of '62, well, they started tearing down the Colby stations in July of '62, but in October of '62, they needed to figure out what to do with 470. So during the 100th anniversary, the 100th birthday of Maine Central Railroad, they gifted 470 to the city, and they wrapped her in. They had a company in Portland make this box that encased the whole locomotive, and they had, I believe, Miss Maine. That was Miss Maine at the time, and the president of the railroad at that little podium on the right, and then it was called. They had a rope, and they pulled down the front of it. I've seen film footage of it. Pulled it down, and then 470 was inside. They also had a historically early snowfall that year, which was mostly melted by the end of the day, as you can see. So the Colby campus on this picture would have been way on the right, and you can see that they've already torn a lot of it down. A lot of the trees are down. It's pretty bare.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yep, the Jefferson, which became the Manor, is right there in the middle. So after the celebration, they closed off College Avenue, and they already started. They built a detour, which is part of it is the modern road now. They tore down the building which was next to the Colby's president's house, and it went around the entire project. And there was a grade crossing in where 470, the last place 470 was on display across from the Manor, Jefferson. That's where the grade crossing was to bypass this project. It would have been on the right here. So this is just showing how much they started digging and how much they dug to get the overpass built. It's quite a cut that they did.
And around what year was that?
Oh, this picture would have been February of '63.
Prevented huge traffic jam.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt the backups was pretty bad whenever a train came through. I don't doubt it. Just sad that the station got torn down. That's all. So the destruction of the station happened in that spring. So the heating plan of the station was on the right side of this picture, the original part of it. And the agreement that they had with the state was that they could be in there until March, and then they needed to move to the southern portion, and they could demolish the northern portion so they didn't need the heating plant anymore. Then they could stay in the southern portion until October of '63. So here's the bill of sale from the station to the state. So the state bought the station for $1, which was at the time they were doing a favor for the railroad because the railroad wanted to unload any real estate because they were paying taxes on it, and those taxes were funding the highways and the airports. So that's why Portland was sold and torn down, Bangor was sold and torn down, and Waterville and Augusta were both sold and torn down.
Really just $1 because that's a standard clause, $1 and under that consideration. Could have been $1 million.
It could have been, yeah. So the gentleman was saying for the recording that it could have been $1 million, could have been however much. This is just a standard legalese. But either way, they wanted to get rid of it, and the state was doing them a favor. Here's another demolition picture. Here's a Morning Sentinel shot. And then it was gone. And the notes for this, I have all the notes for this project. It's amongst 6 notebooks. And it talks about that they were permitted, they demolished the station, they could mix all of the debris with gravel and then push it back into the foundation. And that's what they did. So you can see the rubble from the station there in the foreground. And they built the track literally over the station that they buried. So if you don't walk on the tracks because it's trespassing, but if you go in that area, there are bricks and concrete all over the place because the northern portion of the station is just buried underneath the track. Here's a color shot looking the other way. Then here's an aerial shot that gives you an idea of where the station was in relation to the modern College Avenue. And this one's just showing that the southern portion, the northern portion had already been torn off, but the southern portion was still being used by Railway Express, and you can see the REA Express truck on the right. But that didn't last long. And so this here's October 28th, 63, taking it down. And then it was gone. And this is 64. So like I was saying, a lot of the station is still there. And I took this picture, walked over. This was in the spring. There's portions of the foundation and bricks. A lot of the station platform there was an article about that, and I didn't include it in the presentation, but it was a wood platform originally. And they had special bricks made that had like a design on it so that you wouldn't slip. And I have one of those bricks, but unfortunately I left it at home. But they're all over the place over there. All over the place. And there's debris. There's a little piece of concrete with a post sticking out of it. Signal. Foundation, I think. I didn't go in with plans in hand and see what it actually was. It's all over the place there. And then I did some before and after. So here's a before shot that I talked about before that shows the construction of the Sunoco station. And then here is what you would see now. This is by the police, the modern police station. This was in the spring, so a lot of the brush didn't grow in yet, but I'm standing pretty far into the weeds. And then this is on the other side of College Avenue, looking towards Railroad Square. And that's what you would have seen. And then this is standing with the intersection of Chaplin and College Avenue behind me, looking towards the north end. And that's what you would have seen. And there's the station. And then I've got I have a slideshow here. I'm sure there's going to be some questions, so I'll have the slideshow running while I... What was his name? Jerome Murray for the recording. This is the construction of the Chamber of Commerce building. It's kind of quick. So, any questions?
Peter, did the demolition of like Union Station and Portland, all of them all along the way, pretty much at the same time frame?
Yeah, Portland was torn down. So the question was, were the other major stations in Maine, was it all in the same time frame? And yeah, it was. So Bangor was 60, Portland was 61, Waterville was 62, 63, well, 63, and I actually don't know Augusta. Early 60s, definitely. 61? Augusta was 61. So this picture, that was the campers were still coming to Waterville, even though the station wasn't there, so they unloaded them at the present rail yard. Yeah.
Is this sign that's under the TV here, is that one of the signs?
Yeah, right there. Right there. Yeah, so that's one of the station signs. So there was a bunch of them. And I believe that Lawrence Brown, he worked for the railroad, he worked for the bus line, and he shot a lot of 8mm footage of the railroad. And he ended up with these signs, I believe. And when he passed away, one was given away, this one. The other one was given to, well, they were both given away, was given to a friend who recently in the last 10 years, sold it on auction before I sort of got into this, which I would have bought it if I had known, but yeah, it didn't make it. So those 8mm film that Lawrence Brown shot ended up with a guy, I don't remember his last name, he did Mark's Video, which does a bunch of rail productions. And when he passed away, his son still has the footage, but he has so many. He said, I can't go through it all, so it's out there somewhere. I just don't know. You can't see it. It's on a DVD, but it's not great. It's not great quality. And Waterville is in it. There are pictures. There's shots in Waterville. That was a long answer to your short question.
It's not a railroad question.
Sure.
But in many of these pictures in the 60s, you've still got elm trees. When did the last of the elm trees come down in Waterville?
99. There was an article in the Sentinel in 99 that there was one last of the big elm trees that was in the south end on Water Street.
Yep.
And that's,
Pictures of that.
yeah, when they took that one down. Yeah. They were everywhere. And yeah, Dutch elm disease just ravaged them here. But there is, the one that's in Constangway Square across from the City Hall is a beautiful big elm tree. But
Yeah, there's one in front of there.
yep, there's one there. Those are the only two I know of in Waterville.
So they were lost between the 60s and the 90s. That's when they were more about to.
Yeah, and a lot of them were torn. I mean, these highway projects, roads are nicer than trees. So a lot of them got torn down with road expansions. There were absolutely massive. And I have the survey. These are two different pictures. So I was going to go back. The trees that were in Colby were massive trees. There was like 60-something inches in diameter, if I remember correctly. They were absolutely massive.
I work for Waterville Creates, and one of my colleagues is actually going to be working with the residential school to harvest some seeds from the elm tree in Kusongway.
Ah, great.
And sprout some and plant some over it.
There was an article recently in the Sentinel about the desire to plant more elm trees, since Waterville is Elm City, and then it's got 2 elm trees that I know of off the top of my head.
We've named her Ellie. Ellie the elm.
What became of 470?
So I'm with the group that does 472. The question was what happened to 470. 470 was bought and moved to Ellsworth. Excuse me, it's being restored to operation. We have an event next weekend called Touch a Train on Saturday up there. You're all welcome to come, and you can come see 470. It's in many pieces. It is not really recognizable right now, but it had to be completely disassembled and put back together. So it's in Ellsworth.
What's the timeline on the restoration?
When we get enough money.
There was another engine, and you probably already told us, but I forgot what came with that other engine, the 519.
519's in, so the question was what happened to 519 and 501. So 519 is in Steamtown in Pennsylvania, and 501 is in North Conway, which is, it's slated for restoration.
When you say slated for restoration, it means you operable.
Yep.
And who makes the pieces that get made?
So machinists, steam locomotives are kind of crude. Kind of like the basic operation of steam, and it's a loaded answer. I wouldn't say. There's pretty sophisticated things on steam locomotives, but the major things are kind of crude. The joke is, with a steam locomotive, you can find, what is it? You can find the problem. You can find the problem really easy, but it takes long to fix it. Or you can find the, I don't remember it. I don't remember it. This is 43.
Cadet? Colby Cadet project?
Yeah, marching down to Elmwood, I believe. Any other questions?
Have you looked into, sorry, did I interrupt?
No, go ahead.
I didn't raise my hand. Have you looked into 3D printing your model?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I taught myself how to do the 3D modeling, and so I'd have to teach myself how to. You can't. I don't think I can just take that and print it out. It's going to have to be. It might be in separate pieces and have to glue them together. So I'd like have to buy myself a 3D printer and then have to teach myself how to do it. But I'd love to sell. I'm also doing Bangor Union Station, a model of that. I'd like to do Portland Union Station. I'm working on model of Memorial Hall of Colby College. Love to be able to print them out someday. Go ahead.
ABCC has a 3D printing
Yeah.
class,
Ah.
and I know that lots of, I bet they would love to take that on as a project.
Hey, if I'm all for it. If they'd like to take it, I mean, I can't pay them to do it, and I don't live in the area, so. But if they want to do it, I can send them the files, and I'll be more than happy to watch them, let them tell me what it needs, how it needs to be fixed. You got a question back there?
Not so much a question as a statement.
Yeah.
That there are people that are full, would love to get past the rail.
Yeah.
Back in the territory.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are other interested people, noise is good.
Yeah.
And now is kind of a crucial time because the biker contingent would love to take the right of ways
Yeah.
and remove all the rails and make them into bike trails.
Yep.
But it's too bad because, you know, as you went through your slides and presentation, you moved from basically a very energy efficient thing.
Yep.
And the juxtaposition with all the gas stations going up.
Yep.
Across the street, and that is a very good slide. Because, you know, bingo, instead of moving all those people the way they used to,
Yep.
now you do it with more money.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, individually, I mean, it's all good stuff, but that's the way it is. But to throw away a rail line from Portland, Brunswick, through all the towns along the Kennebec,
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to Bangor, and could go all the way to Hancock Point,
Mm-hmm.
like it used to do, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Throw away $1 billion worth of infrastructure.
Yep. So for the recording, the comment was about bringing how much infrastructure was lost in the name of the automobile, and now how much less energy efficient it is to transport people. And look, I mean, in the '60s, everyone wanted a car. The business was just like right now. I get, you know, there's a lot of marijuana shops because that is. I mean that's like the hot thing right now that everyone's trying to make money with that. And back then it was service stations for your car. Everyone was trying to make money with it. So they were everywhere. I mean, off the top of my head, there is Silver Street Service. There was another one downtown. There was like the Six that I pointed out. There's another on Main Street where Elm City Photo used to be on the intersection of Chaplin Street. There's the one on Elm Street. There was one. I mean, they were just everywhere. And it was, well, I don't want to be on a smelly train with other people without air conditioning when I could have my nice well cars and have air conditioning. But yeah, I can see it, and I'd love to be able to take the train. And it's really sad that we destroyed such a pedestrian-friendly, easy, walkable country into parking lots and highways. Because like here, you used to be able to walk down to Coddles, which was, well, it was A&P, and then it was Coddles, and then it was like Morning Sentinel, and then across the street was a print shop, and there was restaurants and there was a furniture store. I mean, it's not like that anymore. You know, everything is down by the highway. Modern buses is if you take a bus from Waterville, the bus drops you off over on KMD, where everything should be downtown. Because you're at the bus station, there's no bus service. You got to call a cab, or you have to have someone pick you up. Where if you were getting in the train station here, I mean, it would take you a while, but you could walk from like this building to the train station. I mean, back then you could take the streetcar, which came out in front of Silver Street, but it was walkable. But now it's just not anymore. To continue your comment. Any other questions? Yeah, Dad.
How come you don't have a picture of you about this tall in
Ah.
front of 470?
Because So the question is, there's a picture of me. So there's a picture of me as a child in front of 470, but this presentation is not about me or 470. Yeah.
Let me take the floor for a second.
Okay.
Not to steal your thunder, but for those of you who don't know, when this boy was 2, 3 years old, he was obsessed with 470. Absolutely obsessed. He went to that place, to the 470 virtually every day, so that he and his sister could climb on it, blah, blah, blah. So he announced to me when he was about 3 years old that someday, Daddy, I'm going to fix this train. So, of course, and told his mother to. So, of course, as a parent, you hear that, and you like roll your eyes. I don't know, it was about 10 years ago, there was a picture of Peter on the front page of the Sentinel.
I was going into the smoke box of where behind the headlight.
Inside the train, and it was the great contrast when he was that age of him telling us he was going to fix that train. And lo and behold, he's fixing that train. Good job, bud. Have that ready.
Yeah.
Like I say, the battery, die hard.
Yeah.
Didn't I read that Bangor is now bringing back the trolley service and the tracks?
I haven't heard any. So the question was about.
Paper just this week.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So the question was about.
Right, it's not with tracks. It's a street trolley without the tracks.
So the question was asking if they were going to bring back the trolley system in Bangor. I haven't seen the article this week. So trackless trolleys are a thing. They have overhead lines, so they don't have a gas engine, so they don't do emissions. I don't know. Are they just converting the bus lines, or is it an additional?
That's what your father was saying. I thought it was with tracks, because you know,
Hey, I'd love that. That's cool.
when you do excavations around Waterville, around Elm Street or whatever, there's
Yeah.
tracks up
Yeah,
there.
in the 40s, they did a complete reconstruction of College Avenue. They put in concrete panels, and they ripped out most of the tracks except for right at the lower grade crossing, which was at Front Street and College Ave, because you need a special frog. So the frog is where the tracks connect. And I believe they just didn't want to get involved with railroad because they need to do all kinds of safety things. Well, maybe not back then, to access the railroad. So they kept those until this project in '62 to rip them out. But yeah, they're still Main Street. They were ripped out of Main Street too. But besides those two, as far as I know, there was no project to get rid of them. So in Silver Street, they might still be there. I don't know Chase Avenue. They probably ripped them out of Chase Avenue because I would imagine they would take the tracks out and then put Chase Avenue. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.